Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Dear students, you are welcome in this class. Today we are going to discuss soil organic matter, all kind of details related to soil organic matter. The learning objectives are understand the definition, role, composition and decomposition of organic matter in soil. Composition means what are the constituents which make up the organic matter, and decomposition means how it is destroyed in the soil, and also learn the factors affecting decomposition and organic matter content in the soil, and also learn the strategies to improve organic matter content in the soils. Means how we can improve, what is the current status of organic matter in the soil, how best we can improve the organic matter levels in the soil. We will learn all these, but before going into the details, let us see some glossary or terms related to soil organic matter which quite often used by you. For example, fulvic acid. It is yellow, light yellow colored material that remains in solution after separating humic acid from humus by acidification. It is less dense, more aliphatic and has a low molecular weight. Then hemicelluloses consist of polymers that are branched, the second most common carbohydrate, up to 30% in plant residues, sometimes may be hemicelluloses. Pectin is an example of hemicelluloses. Humic acid, dark colored organic material. See, fulvic acid was light colored, but humic acid is dark colored organic material extracted from soil by various reagents. Today we will see how this is extracted from dilute alkali, or where we use the acid also, and is precipitated by acid. So, it has a relatively high molecular weight than the fulvic acid. Humification, process by which the carbon of organic substances is transformed. Transformed means you are converted and resynthesized to humic substances, means simply formation of humus is your humification. It is mediated by the biochemical and physiochemical processes. Humus. Humus is the most important constituent of organic matter which stays in soil for a very long time, and which is also responsible for improved cation exchange capacity of the soil. So, humus is total of the organic compounds or materials in the soil excluding undecayed plant and animal tissues. Humus equals fulvic acid plus humin plus humic acid, simply. Often used to describe soil organic matter, it is generally dark in color. Now, sometimes you must have heard about labile, non-labile carbon, organic matter, labile phosphorus. So, what do we mean actually by labile? So, labile is a substance that is quickly transformed or used by microorganism. Labile organic matter is often associated with the active organic carbon. Now, lignin, the third most common component of plant residues. It is present in woody or mature tissues and increases as a plant ages, means with the aging of the plant, the levels of lignin in plant increase, and it is the material or part of the organic matter of the plant which is difficult to digest or difficult to decompose. Microbial biomass, sometimes it is also referred as SMB, soil microbial biomass. This includes the smallest living organisms such as bacteria, fungus, protozoa, algae, actinomycetes, nematodes and non-living organisms like prions and viruses. All constitute microbial biomass in the soil. It has very important role, particularly in the decomposition of organic matter and formation of humus in the soil. Total carbon. Sometimes you must have heard total carbon, organic carbon, inorganic carbon. Total carbon is total of inorganic plus organic carbon. So, the total of all forms of carbon present in the soil, this is composed of microbial carbon, particulate organic carbon, fulvic acid, humic acid, humin, and non-humified carbon like in glucose and calcium and magnesium carbonate. All sorts of materials which are there in the soil having carbon are part of the total carbon in soil. Now, carbon is very important element. Just before we go into the organic matter, let us see how much this carbon is important. So, carbon and its processes are essential to life and agricultural production. They also play a direct role in our changing global climate. These days we talk a lot about carbon dioxide. The increasing levels of CO2 in the environment are causing partly the global warming, and this global warming will adversely affect humans, animal life and animals life on the earth. So, we deal with the carbon most of the time. Carbon bonds form the skeleton for all living things. Carbon is the second element by weight in the human body, means our body is largely made up of carbon. 40% of die weight in plant is carbon, full of carbon, plants. It forms millions of compounds, this carbon. Some are common like carbon dioxide and others are very precious resources like your diamond. Diamond is carbon. Your petroleum, most of the petroleum products and natural gases, they contain carbon. It is the fourth most abundant element in the universe. So, let us see the relationship between soil organic matter and the carbon cycle. So, this carbon passes from one phase to another phase, passes from one system to another system, and carbon may remain in a particular form for thousands of years. Like you see fossil fuels, they are lying beneath the seabed for millions of years. So, they can remain in a particular form for thousands of years, be transformed into countless variations as it passes through land, water and atmosphere. Circulation of carbon is there. So, carbon cycle, what is important in carbon cycle? Carbon in the storage form, it is stored in sediments, soils, fossil fuels, your oceans, your soils, they store large quantity of carbon in them. Carbon may be there in the transitioning form, from one form to other form it is getting converted. So, carbon in transitioning from one form to another in atmosphere, carbon compounds in plant and animal life. Means suppose somebody has eaten glucose or somebody has eaten carbohydrate, then sometimes he will die, he will leave it as carbon dioxide. So, it changes forms. The processes that cause carbon to change form are very important, and three important processes are there. Number one is photosynthesis, number two is respiration, and number three is decomposition. So, these three processes are very important in carbon cycle, which we need to learn. Now, photosynthesis, as most of the students know what is photosynthesis, the green plants synthesize carbohydrates or food material in their leaves, in the green leaves, in the presence of sunlight, water and carbon dioxide. So, during this process, carbon dioxide from atmosphere is taken by the plants and they synthesize the food. So, this is your photosynthesis, and then these food materials are also consumed by the plant. They are also consumed by other organisms including animals and human beings. They respire it. So, part of the carbon dioxide which was assimilated by the plant will go back to the environment as carbon dioxide. So, this respiration is very important process which helps in the circulation of carbon from one phase to another phase. The third important process is, as I told you, third important process is decomposition. So, decomposition is also a key process in the carbon cycle. So, it breaks down carbon compounds produced during the growth. For example, sugars, starch, protein, cellulose, fats, lignin, whatever is produced, that will get decomposed when you put that material into a living body or put them into the soil. They will get decomposed, they will get destroyed. It results in energy for macro and microorganisms like animals, arthropods, fungus, nematodes, bacteria, etc. and carbon dioxide and stable organic matter are products of decomposition. So, decomposition, actually there are two processes happening together hand in hand during the decomposition. One is humification and other is mineralization. In the humification process, humus is produced, which is a stable form of organic matter in the soils. And also through mineralization, minerals are produced, and those minerals are stored in soil and taken up by the plants or used by the plants. So, it also stores carbon in the soil. Now, we come to the actual topic, which is soil organic matter. Let us see what is soil organic matter. So, on the basis of organic matter content, soils may be called mineral or organic soil. So, there is certain limit based upon which the soils are classified, limit of organic matter. So, mineral soils form most of the world's cultivated land and may contain from a trace to the less than 30% of the organic matter. Means soils which contain 30% or less organic matter are mineral soils, and soils which have higher more than 30% soil organic matter are called as organic soils. Now, let us define soil organic matter. What do we mean by soil organic matter? So, soil organic matter is any material produced originally by living organism. One thing we need to remember, that organic matter will always come from a living matter, whether it is animal or plant. So, that is returned to the soil and goes through the decomposition process. So, ultimately whatever we add into the soil, that has to undergo the process of decomposition. So, at any given time, it consists of range of materials from the intact original tissues. These intact original tissues that can be easily recognized or are in the recognizable form of plants and animals, to the substantially decomposed mixture. It is also organic matter, decomposed mixture of materials known as humus. So, this definition was proposed by Food and Agriculture Organization in year 2005. Now, let us see more clarity on this subject, soil organic matter. So, organic matter means matter arising from the living matter is your organic matter. In chemistry and soil science, referring more specifically to matter relating to or containing carbon compound, means any matter or material which contains carbon will become organic material or organic matter. More specifically, organic matter is composed of living and dead biomass, mainly of plant growth origin. The dead fraction is formed by chemical and biological decomposition of live or fresh organic residues and is usually distinguished into the following. Number 1, partially decomposed organic residues or organic matter at various degrees of decomposition, means it has not fully decomposed yet, but it is under different stages of the decomposition in which the morphology of plant material is still visible. That means we can still identify the material, the source of the material. Completely decomposed material. Number 2 is completely decomposed materials with no traces of anatomical structure of the original plant material from which they have been formed. So, another group is where you cannot recognize the original material from which this matter has been produced. Now, soil organic matter can be classified into two groups. One is unaltered material, other is transformed products, and transformed products are further divided into two, 2A and 2B. We will go into the details. Let us see unaltered organic material or materials, fresh debris that have been recently added, and non-transformed components of older debris are making unaltered, as the name suggests that they have not been decomposed, they are under the process of decomposition. Number 2 class of soil organic matter is transformed products, that is mostly humus. So, it bears no morphological resemblance to the structures from which it has been derived, consists of both humic and non-humic substances and can be into two parts. Means humus has two kind of parts, one is humic acid and other may be non-humic material. The two constitute the humus. Number 1 is amorphous polymeric brown colored humic substances which are differentiated on the basis of solubility properties into humic acid, fulvic acid and humins. So, they are number 1. Number 2 are compounds belonging to recognizable classes such as polysaccharides, polypeptides, altered lignins, etc. These can be synthesized by microorganism or can arise from modifications of similar compound in the original debris. Now, see this picture, this is from FAO 2015. So, how this soil organic matter is divided. So, you can see two parts. One is living organism, which is also known as soil engine. So, living organism constitute mostly macroorganism as well as microorganism, and other part is partially decomposed plant and animal residues. They can be further divided into two, or with the time they will pass into two different phases. One is unaltered material, some will remain still unaltered, means unaffected or undecomposed materials, and it is definitely a potential food for microorganism or organism in the soil, this unaltered material. There may be some altered material or transformed material which is further divided into two. Non-humic substances provide definitely food and energy, and also it acts as a glue. It holds the soil particles together, these non-humic substances. And humic substances act as a nutrient bank, because these humic substances act as soil colloid, organic soil colloid, and they store the nutrient for longer time. And sometimes chelation also happens because of humus, means the wastage of nutrient can be avoided if we increase the humus content in the soil, and also act as a buffering material, these humic substances. So, this was definitely a simplified diagram telling you the different stages or different classes of organic matter in the soil. Now, let us concentrate on humus. So, humus can be, as just we have seen, there are two different parts, non-humic material and humic material or substances. In non-humic substances consist of mainly carbohydrates, proteins, amino acids, fats, waxes and low molecular weight organic acids are part of the non-humic substances. They are readily attacked by microorganism and they are rapidly decomposed. They are not stable in nature. Then see the humic substances, chemically complex organic compounds with large molecular weights, and they are relatively resistant to microbial attack. Remember, this humic material is resistant to microbial attack, or it is kind of permanent storage of the organic material in the soil, helping to improve physical and chemical properties of the soil. They are mostly responsible for cation exchange and interaction with soil applied pesticides also, these humic substances. Now, in the humic substances we see they are further divided into three different parts. So, based on solubility in acid and alkali, humic substances can be further subdivided. I seek your kind attention, be attentive, this is very important subject. So, see fulvic acid, which is low in molecular weight, light in color, soluble in both acid and alkali, and most susceptible to microbial attack. Among the three, it is most susceptible to microbial attack, but it takes about 15 to 50 years. Humic acid, which is medium in molecular weight and color, soluble in alkali but insoluble in acid, and intermediate in susceptibility to degradation by microbes, but it takes 100 years or more years to get it decomposed, this humic acid. The last one and the most resistant and the important part is humin, which is high in molecular weight, dark in color, insoluble in both acid and alkali, and most resistant to microbial attack. So, this is how this humus is divided into three different components, and what are the characteristics, just you have seen characteristics of these three components of humus. Now, see in picture how they are separated from one another. So, this is the traditional scheme for classifying so-called humic substances found to occur in highly alkaline extraction of soil, Weil and Brady 2017. So, You see, your soil can be extracted with alkali. Alkali, commonly used alkali is sodium hydroxide, that can be used, and it separate it into two parts. One may be insoluble organic compounds and other may be soluble organic compounds. So, insoluble organic compound may be humin, highly condensed, complexed with clays. In the soluble of organic compounds, now you treat this solution with acid pH1 very less pH, and now you will get two things, one is precipitated part, other is soluble part. So, precipitated part is humic acid, dark brown, as usual it is dark brown to black and high molecular weight. It may have up to 300,000 molecular weight, and fulvic acid yellow to red, light in color and lower molecular weight, which varies from 2000 to 50,000. So, this is how we make the difference between three components of humus: humin, humic acid and fulvic acid. Now, let us see the physical characterization of the organic matter or soil organic matter has been classified in 4 classes, which are as under. So, this is basically based upon the relative size, physical parameters. So, for example, crop residues, their particle size is greater than 2 millimeter. Particulate organic matter, commonly called as POM, particles are less than 2 millimeter and but more than 0.053 millimeter in size. Remember, 0.053 is the more than means the lower limit. So, it should be less than 2 millimeter and more than 0.053 millimeter in size, and it is biologically and chemically active and part of the labile. Labile means easily decomposable pool of soil organic matter. The third is humus. For humus, people agree and they define that particles less than 0.053 millimeter are humus particles, and they improve the soil fertility, holds and release nutrients and stores soil moisture. So, this humus perform variety of functions, thereby people are interested to increase the humus content in the soil. The fourth and last important part is recalcitrant or resistant organic carbon pool, which is referred as ROC. So, biologically stable and typically like your charcoal. Now, composition of soil organic matter by percentage basis. So, you can see roughly it is 33 to 50% is stabilized organic matter. So, in any soil at a given point of time, on an average one may have 33 to 50% organic matter in the form of humus, and less than 5% as living organism, which may include bacteria, viruses, nematodes and so on. And fresh residues are generally less than 10%, and decomposing organic matter, which is active fraction of organic matter, which is about 33 to 50%. So, these are very typical or general ranges of the soil organic matter, suggesting that in soil or most of the parts are in as humus or in the decomposing phase, or also your soil organism make up or constitute the organic matter in soil. Now, on elemental basis also we need to see the composition of soil organic matter. As told to you before also, carbon is the dominant part of organic matter, soil organic matter. So, it is 50% is your soil is your carbon, make carbon, 5% nitrogen and 0.5% phosphorus, same about sulfur, which is 0.5% as phosphorus, and 39% oxygen and 5% hydrogen. So, these are very average ranges of carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, oxygen and hydrogen in organic matter, but these values will definitely vary with the climatic conditions as well as soil conditions. Now, let us see what are the factors that affects the levels of organic matter in soils. Means some soils you have very high levels of organic matter, in others you do not have high levels. So, why this variation exists in the organic matter content in soils? In temperate soils you have large amount of or more percentage of organic carbon. In tropical or dry tropical area you have less levels of organic matter. So, what are the reasons, what are the factors that affect the availability or content of soil organic matter in soil? So, organic matter levels of mineral soils can vary from less than 1% in coarse textured soils, sandy soils, to more than 5% in fertile prairie grassland soils. So, it varies. In certain PT or marshy lands, organic matter can be 40%, can be 50%, but in dry tropical areas, it can be just 0.2%, 0.4%. So, such a huge variability in the content of organic matter. Go to the forest soils, hill soils, where you will find more levels of organic matter in the soils. The amount is influenced by the 5 soil forming factors. You understand what are the soil forming factors. These factors arrange in the order of importance, as climate is the most important soil forming factor, which also affects the organic matter content in the soil. Number 2 is vegetation, because climate indirectly affects the vegetation, and this vegetation will affect the organic matter levels in the soil. Then topography and parent material, and finally the age. So, these are the 5 important factors which affect the soil formation, which also affect the formation or accumulation of organic matter in the soil. So, the following generalization have been made regarding soil organic matter levels in the virgin soils. For example, soils formed under grasslands generally have greater amount of humus than soils formed under forest vegetation. You need to be attentive, try to understand these general points, they are very, very important. Number 2, the amount of soil organic matter increases with increasing precipitation and decreases with increasing temperature. Quite interesting. If you increase rainfall, your organic matter content increases. Fine texture, that is clay soils, have higher soil organic matter than light texture soils. Poorly drained soils have higher soil organic matter levels than well drained soils. Means there may be two situations. One may be anaerobic, means kind of submerged soils or flooded soils. Other may be aerobic soils. So, in aerobic soils, generally rate of decomposition is very fast. Therefore, they contain less level of organic matter compared to anaerobic soils. So, we will discuss in detail about this. Soils in lowlands have higher soil organic matter content than soils on upland topography positions. Environmental factors like temperature, moisture, natural vegetation, soil texture, and of course management factors, all these factors will affect the content of soil organic matter, and we will discuss in detail one by one. So, let us start with temperature. The respiration loss of soil carbon takes place at increasing rates as soil temperature increases. The temperature response is thought to be greater for respiration of labile soil carbon than for carbon in the resistant humus fractions. That means the labile carbon is more affected by temperature effect than the non-labile carbon, which is there for the long term storage in the soil. Temperature response interacts with soil moisture, being small when water is limiting and also declining when soils are so wet that oxygen becomes limiting to the process. So, temperature definitely interact with soil moisture. If you have high temperature but moisture is not there, so rate of decomposition will be very slow. If you have high temperature but still the water is too much now, so in that case also decomposition will reduce. So, you need both at ideal level, means right moisture, right temperature, then you can have very high decomposition rate. Otherwise, we like to have the best or the more levels of soil organic matter in the soil. However, we do not have control on temperature, but we can manage or manipulate the moisture in the soil. Moisture. Now, let us see how this water or moisture content in soil affects the levels of organic matter. Under comparable conditions, soil organic carbon and nitrogen increase as the effective moisture become greater. The CN ratio also tends to be higher in the more thoroughly leached soils of the higher rainfall areas. The lowest level of soil organic matter and the greatest difficulty in maintaining those levels are found where annual mean temperature is high and rainfall is low. Now, the third important factor is influence of natural vegetation. Climate and vegetation usually act together to influence the soil organic matter. The greater plant productivity engendered by well-watered environment leads to greater addition to the pools of the soil organic matter. The greater plant productivity, in climatic zones where the natural vegetation includes both forest and grassland, the soil organic matter is higher in soils developed under grassland than under forest. So, this is quite common because grassland conditions are mostly under temperate climate and the rate of decomposition is lower in grassland compared to forest area, mainly because of lower C/N ratio. Therefore, the accumulation of carbon or organic matter is more in grassland than in forest areas. Now, effect of texture and drainage is mainly soil texture and drainage from the soil. Within a local landscape, soil texture and drainage are responsible for differences in soil organic matter. Under aerobic conditions, soils high in clay and silt are generally richer in organic matter than are nearby sandy soils. The finer textured soils accumulate more soil organic matter due to production of more plant biomass. Generally, these heavy texture soils or clay soils, they produce more biomass, plant biomass than the sandy soils. Less aerated, less loss of organic matter. In the clay soils, aeration is slower than the sandy soils. More organic matter is protected from decomposition by being bound to clay surfaces or sequestered inside the soil aggregates. In poorly drained soils, the high moisture supply promotes plant dry matter production and relatively low oxygen or even anaerobic conditions inhibit organic matter decomposition. If your soils are flooded, they are full of water, under those conditions there will be deficiency of oxygen in the soil, which will reduce the aerobic decomposition, and it can happen only mostly anaerobic decomposition or fermentation of the organic matter under those conditions. Therefore, organic matter is bound to increase. So, poorly drained soils therefore generally accumulate much higher levels of organic matter and also nitrogen throughout their profiles than do similar but better aerated soils. Now, see this picture, soils high in silt and clay tend to contain high levels of organic carbon. So, this data is very good data. You can see on x axis it is silt content or clay content which is increasing. On y axis it is organic carbon content. So, they have very linear relationship. As the silt and clay content increasing in the soil, as is the organic carbon content in the soil. Now, inputs and output of organic carbon. If we put more carbon or organic matter into the soil, the organic matter will be naturally more. If we put very less quantity of organic matter into the soil, then organic matter status will be low. So, this is very simple. So, the quantity of organic matter in soil is a balance between input and output. How much we add to it, how much we take out, or how much goes out. In agricultural soils, the main organic carbon inputs are plant roots and associated material, sloughed off root cells, root exudates and above ground plant parts, like sometimes stems also mixed in the soil, or fallen leaves are also there, and any other non harvested plant parts which are returned back to the soil will become part of the organic matter, or there may be certain additions in the form of manures or other materials into the soil. So, all these are the inputs which are within the soil as well, like plant parts or maybe from outside in the form of manures. The main output of carbon is decomposition, means how we lose carbon from the soil. It is mostly by decomposition, maybe by erosion also. Sometimes soil erosion will also reduce the organic matter or carbon content in the soil. Now, in this picture, let us see different inputs and outputs. So, in the left box you see these are inputs are mainly plant roots contribute towards organic matter, above ground plant residues, certain like leaf fall and some stems are left in the soil, or lower part of the plant is left in the soil, and there may be plant residues, manures are the addition, and sometimes some organic matter may come from the dust also, or through erosion from one part to another part, or soil deposited from erosion, or dissolved organic matter from incoming water. Sometimes there may be some carbon in water also. And now see output. So output is mostly by decomposition of organic matter by microbes to carbon dioxide under aerobic conditions and methane under anaerobic conditions. And there may be some dissolved organic matter loss and also loss of organic matter by soil erosion. So it is just like a balance. You see, if you put more input than output, then your organic matter will increase, and other way around, if your output is more than the input, your levels of carbon will decrease in the soil. Now, impact of management practices, how a farmer manages the soil, how they manage the crops, it also affects the organic matter content in the soil. On an average, application of inorganic nitrogen, often with phosphorus and potassium, led to the soil organic carbon and soil organic nitrogen contents of soil being 8% and 12% greater than in the corresponding control. It is very simple. Means there may be two situations. In one situation, you are applying fertilizer, in other you are not applying fertilizer. So wherever we apply fertilizer, the organic matter content or organic carbon content in the soil increases. Balanced fertilization and application of organic residues or manure definitely increase the soil organic matter content. Adoption of efficient crop rotations, inclusion of legumes as sole or intercrop or cover crop, and it may be included as green manuring crop. So these crops definitely add and increase the organic matter content in the soil. And if we are able to reduce the soil erosion, we will increase the organic matter content in the soil. So sometimes we grow mostly erosion permitting kind of crop, mostly cereal. In those cases, the losses of soil by erosion are more. If we have some legumes in the rotation, they definitely reduce the losses by soil erosion. So under those conditions, these legumes increase the soil organic matter levels. Now we see the decomposition of soil organic matter, how it is decomposed. So once organic materials are added to soil, decomposing organisms begin digesting them. They are attacked by the microbes. Variety of microbes are there in the soil. So decomposition proceeds more quickly with warm soil temperature. Temperatures are high, adequate soil moisture and good aeration. If these three conditions met in the soil, the decomposition rate are very fast. If one of these three is missing or is at lower level or at very high level like water, then it will decrease the reactions or decomposition of organic matter. That means it will conserve more organic matter. Higher decomposition means higher decomposition rate will lead to lower level of carbon in soil and vice versa. If your decomposition rates are slower, that means your soil will contain more carbons. So it is very easy to understand. Carbon compounds remaining after decomposition become part of stable soil organic matter called humus. So after decomposition, part of the organic matter will be lost to the environment in the form of carbon oxides, carbon dioxide, methane, any other carbon based material, and then finally some part of that organic matter will be left in the soil as humus. Now see the composition of different plant residues. So far we can understand the decomposition later. So typical composition of representative green plant materials, remember these are green plant materials. The ash is considered to include all the constituent elements other than carbon, oxygen and hydrogen, because when we burn the plant material, when we digest it, so ash contains all minerals and we lose carbon, hydrogen and oxygen on burning. So if we see in the green materials, there is about on an average 75% water and 25% dry matter. This is average value, and in this dry matter, if we see the type of compounds based composition, then cellulose is the most important compound, making 45%. The next is lignin 20%, hemicellulose 18%, protein 8% and fats and waxes 2%. So this is composition of different compounds in the organic matter. And see the elemental basis composition. So as already discussed, carbon is 42%, oxygen also 42%, hydrogen 8% and ash is 8%. Ash means this all minerals constitute about 8%. So largely organic matter is made up of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. Now you see the decomposition rate of different organic materials or different compounds in organic matter. It start with the sugar. Sugar is the most rapidly decomposed, followed by then starches, simple proteins, crude proteins, hemicellulose, cellulose, fat, waxes, resins and lignins. As we go down in this chart, the decomposition rate decreases, the slower and slowest, and as we go up, so sugar is the first to be decomposed and lignins are the last to be decomposed. That is the meaning of this table. Now see the process of decomposition of organic matter, the different pathway of humidification. What can happen depending upon the availability of water and temperature in the soil. So if one is adding plant and animal residues into the soil, so it can go into different pathways depending upon the soil conditions. So first of all, the sugar, starch and hemicellulose and cellulose, they will decompose under two settings. One may be aerobic setting, one other may be anaerobic setting. So under anaerobic decomposition, they will be converted into organic acids and alcohol where there is deficiency of oxygen in the soil, and they will be further decomposed to carbon dioxide and water under anaerobic conditions, and there may be formation of methane also. Then aerobic conditions, this sugar will converted directly to the carbon dioxide and water. The next constituents are your amino acid, peptides, polypeptides and proteins. They are converted into ammonical form of nitrogen, nitrates, carbon dioxide, water and sulfate. The other could be that they can be resynthesized by microbial cell substances as the part of their cells. And then these microbes may die, they may decay or they may get their death, and on death the cellulose and proteins present in the microbes will be converted into humus. See the third pathway, which is for fats, waxes and resins. They can be converted into carbon dioxide and water. The most resistant part is lignin. So lignin can be converted into residual lignin, phenols, quinones, and they can directly become part of humus, and certain nutrients which are present in the soil or certain bases or salt or metals can be part of the humus. So this is very simplified diagram telling us different pathway of humidification under different soil setting. Now we discuss the decomposition of soil organic matter under aerobic setting. So there is a significant diversity of decomposing organisms, including large animals. More energy is available for decomposition under aerobic systems. Aerobic system here means there is sufficient oxygen in the soil. Aerobic respiration results in more energy than anaerobic respiration. A significant portion of the digested carbon is released as CO2. Let us see how this soil organic matter decompose under aerobic setting. So first of all, there will be mechanical shredding. Shredding means cutting off into pieces of the soil organic matter by soil fauna, or physical processes must occur before the microbes break it down. So following four processes occur during the decomposition. Number one, plant carbon compounds are enzymatically oxidized to produce carbon dioxide, water, energy and composer biomass. Essential nutrient elements such as nitrogen, phosphorus and sulfur are released and or immobilized by a series of specific reactions that are relatively unique for each element. That means the mineralization or immobilization also happens during the process of decomposition. So you remember the first step was shredding of the organic material. Now it is getting mineralized or immobilized simultaneously. The third is that the new compounds are synthesized by microbes as cellular constituent or as breakdown products or secondary metabolites. Some of the original plant compounds, their breakdown products and microbial compounds become physically or chemical protected from further microbial decay via interaction with the soil environment. Means lastly you will get the humus, the stable compound in the soil, which is also called as carbon sequestration, kind of storage of carbon in the soil. Now see the decomposition of organic material under anaerobic setting or submerged condition. You know, when the water enters the soil, oxygen come out. So water occupies the pore spaces in the soil and oxygen goes away from the soil. So such soils become anaerobic. So decomposition rate is very slow under anaerobic conditions because of want of oxygen. There is no oxygen in the soil. So there are fewer decomposing organisms, mostly anaerobic bacteria. Less energy is produced during anaerobic respiration. Products are different here. In that case it was carbon dioxide, but now it is methane. Buildup of transition products like organic acids and alcohol are also produced under anaerobic setting. There is net accumulation of soil organic matter under submerged soils. Because of the rate of decomposition is slower, therefore accumulation of carbon dioxide is more in these soils. Now see the products of decomposition under two settings. First is, see the first column, element, aerobic soil and submerged soil. Submerged soils here mean anaerobic soils. So carbon under aerobic soil it is carbon dioxide, under submerged soils it is methane, CH4, as well as carbon dioxide. Under submerged condition you will have carbon dioxide as well as methane. Regarding nitrogen, it is nitrates are formed in the aerobic setting or aerobic soils, and ammonical form of nitrogen is produced under submerged soils. So far sulfur is concerned, under aerobic soil sulfate is produced, and under anaerobic soil hydrogen sulfide or H2S is produced. Particularly this hydrogen sulfide could be harmful to the rice plants or any aquatic plant which is growing under submerged conditions. Others like your organic acids and alcohols are produced under submerged condition. Now see, this is quite interesting data from China reported by Cheng 1984, and they have done this, the results are from three different places in China, Jiangsu, Jiangxi and Guangdong. So there are three different. See the first place, under waterlogged soil organic matter is 3.47%. Under well drained soil it is just 2.2%. Similarly at another location, Jiangxi, in waterlogged soil it is 3.23 and well drained 3.08%. And last is Guangdong, where waterlogged soil 3.12 and in well drained 2.12. Message in brief is that under waterlogged soil you get more accumulation of organic matter than in aerobic conditions. So why this slow decomposition under submerged soil? Just you have seen in the last slide, because of 4-5 reasons. First reason is that deleterious effects on microbial activity of reduction products like H2S, hydrogen sulfide is produced, or certain volatile fatty acids are produced, and there may be some toxic concentration of these like ammonia, aluminum, iron and other cations in the solution. So because of this, microbial activities are reduced and therefore the rate of decomposition is slower. The absence of electron acceptors such as iron oxides and hydroxide in submerged soils and sediments slows down organic matter oxidation and mineralization. The third reason is that formation of recalcitrant complex organic molecules with organic matter fractions. For example, through enrichment of organic matter with phenolics in intensified irrigation production system may render them less available for microbial attack and utilization. The last thing is that the net primary productivity of wetland is higher than other ecosystem. So these four reasons seems to be true, and they have been reported by Sehrawat 2004. Now let us see the factors affecting rates of residue decomposition and mineralization. What are different factors that affect the rate of decomposition or rate of mineralization? So there are four important factors, physical factors influencing residue quality. Number 2, carbon-nitrogen ratio of organic materials, microbes and soils. Number 3 is influence of soil ecology. Influence of lignin and polyphenol content. Now physical factors influencing residue quality. Surface placement of plant residue result in slower and more variable rate of decomposition than where similar residues are incorporated. Means incorporation of residues increases decomposition rate, If you put them on surface, decomposition rate is slow. Surface residues are subject to rapid drying as well as extreme temperatures. Now, physical factors continues. Surface placement of plant residues result in slower and more variable rate of decomposition than where similar residues are incorporated into the soil. So, surface residues are subject to rapid drying as well as extremes of temperature. Nutrient elements mineralized from surface applied residues are also more susceptible to loss in runoff or by volatilization than are those from incorporated residues. Surface residues are physically out of reach for most soil organisms, so slow decomposition. So, therefore, in conservation agriculture, we get slower decomposition of surface applied residues compared to the residues which are incorporated into the soil. Incorporated residues decompose quickly as they are in intimate contact with the soil moisture and soil organisms. The smaller the residue particles, the more rapid the decomposition. Means if your particles are smaller, their surface area is more, therefore their decomposition rate is more. So, shredding residues into smaller particles exposes more surface area to decomposition and also breaks up lignaceous cell walls and waxy outer coating. So, it has dual benefit. Root residues decompose more slowly than above ground residues, even those that have been incorporated into the soil, because they have more microbial population around them. So, root exudates are there which help them for faster decomposition of root residue than the above ground residues. Now, carbon nitrogen ratio is also very important in the process of decomposition of organic matter or decomposition of microbes in soil. The ratio of carbon to nitrogen is in organics residues applied to soil is important for two reasons. Number one, intense competition among microbes for available soil nitrogen occurs when residues having a high CN ratio are added to the soil. If you are adding organic matter which is having very high CN ratio, then whatever nitrogen is available in the soil, that will be taken up by the microorganism for their food. Number two, the residues CN ratio helps determine the rate of decay and the rate at which nitrogen is made available. Means if your CN ratio is very narrow, the mineralization will be fast, decomposition will be fast. If your CN ratio is very wide, decomposition rate will be very slow. In case of wider CN ratio, there will be immobilization of nitrogen. In case of narrow CN ratio, there will be mineralization of nitrogen. So, these 4 points are important. Now, the CN ratio in plant residues ranges from between 8:1 to 30:1 in legumes and young green leaves to higher than 500:1, may be very wide in some cases like sawdust and charred materials which are full of carbon. Generally, as plants mature, the proportion of protein in their tissues decline, while the proportion of lignin and cellulose and the CN ratio increase. The CN ratio of microorganism is not only less variable than in plant tissues, but also much lower, ordinarily falling between 5:1 and 10:1. Among microorganisms, bacteria are generally richer in protein than fungi. This is very interesting fact to remember. Bacterial CN ratio is narrow, means they have more proteins than fungi and consequently have a lower CN ratio. The CN ratio in the organic matter of arable cultivated surface horizon commonly ranges from 8:1 to 15:1. Normally, for students in India, we consider CN ratio in soil as 10:1. 10:1 is the average value. However, the range may be from 8.1 to 15.1, the median being near 12:1. The ratio is generally lower for subsoils than for surface soil, because such surface soils are rich in organic matter. Now, besides carbon, organism must also get nitrogen to synthesize nitrogen containing compounds like amino acids, enzymes and DNA. On the average, soil microorganism must incorporate into their cells 8 parts of carbon for every 1 part of nitrogen. This is quite interesting. 1/3 of the carbon metabolized by microbes is incorporated into their cells. The remainder is respired as carbon dioxide. The microbes need to find about 1 gram of nitrogen for every 24 gram of carbon in their food. It has been reported by Well and Brady 2017. Thus, if the CN ratio of residues exceed 25:1, the soil microbes will have to scavenge the soil solution to obtain enough nitrogen. Means if your CN ratio is more than 25:1, then immobilization will happen. Thus, the incorporation of high CN residues will deplete the soil nitrogen supply of soluble nitrogen, causing plants to suffer from nitrogen deficiency. The decay of organic material can be delayed if sufficient nitrogen to support microbial growth is neither present in the material undergoing decomposition nor available in the soil solution. Now, you see this picture quite interesting. This is in two parts, this slide and next slide. So, you can see organic material, what happens to the decomposition when organic matter with high CN ratio is added, number 1. So, see picture on the left side, the two graphs at left show what happens when organic matter with high CN ratio like rice straw is added. The graphs are divided into 3 parts, 1 to 3. First one is initial phase, the net immobilization. See the one phase, microorganism consume nitrogen ammonical form, causing ammonium to decrease. Bottom graph, see the levels of ammonium are decreasing in the first phase and CN ratio is also decreasing, see on the top graph. Now, see this picture also, number 2 stage, intermediate stage or phase. Microbes have immobilized the available nitrogen ammonical in soil. Bottom graph, maximum consumption of carbon products and production of carbon dioxide, see the bottom graph. Final phase, net mineralization, ammonium levels is increasing, nitrogen in organic compounds is released and ammonium is now available in soil, see the bottom graph, and carbon compounds are decomposed, CO2 production is low, see the bottom graph, and CN ratio is lower. Now, influence of soil ecology. In nature, the process of nitrogen mineralization involves the entire food web, not just the saprophytic bacteria and fungi. The soil management that favors a complex food web will, with the many trophic levels, will be expected to enhance the cycling and efficient use of nitrogen. Influence of lignin and polyphenol content means if your proportion of lignin and polyphenol is more in the organic matter, the rate of decomposition will be slower. Now, sources, now let us see, we are going to wrap up in short. See the importance of soil organic matter, sources of nutrient. This is number 1. Nutrients become available to plants as compounds containing these nutrients are decomposed. You have seen several nutrients are released on mineralization. It is an important source of nitrogen, sulfur and phosphorus. Organic matter stores the nutrient, particularly humus stores the nutrient, and organic matter attracts and stores some nutrients through electrical charges, and these nutrients may otherwise be lost. Provides food for the soil organism and microbes and binds up soil particles. That means improves the physical properties of the soil, and it also encourages the root development as a result of improved soil structure. The last thing is that practices to enhance the soil organic matter levels. So, first practice is that if you want to increase the organic matter levels in the soil, reduce tillage. The number of tillage operation can be reduced because this plowing leads to improved aeration of the soil, and also it encourages the erosion of the particles. Efficient handling and management of crop residues, regular application of organic amendments. We need to continuously add organic manures into the soils, adopt crop rotations that help in the buildup of the organic matter in the soil, adopt the sustainable soil management practices including prevention of erosion, adoption of crop rotations to include legumes. These cover crops are very, very important that protect the soil from erosion, because if the top soil is eroded, that means we are losing most of the organic matter from the soil, as the organic matter is confined mostly in the top soil layer. Precision agriculture including VRT or variable rate technologies and application of fertilizer can be adopted, and wherever feasible agroforestry practices can be adopted because they have been found to improve the organic matter content in soil. Optimize the irrigation practices. Just we have seen that too much or too less water is not good for organic matter conservation. So, as per the kind of crop we can maintain the irrigation water. Also, we should not allow any kind of water erosion from the soil. Manage the soil to maintain or increase the soil crumb. We need to improve the soil structure, because once the soil structure is improved, microbial activity improves, soil aeration improves, water retention improves. So, this helps in the overall conservation of organic matter in the soil. When conditions are suitable, add suitable commercially available biofertilizer. Many biofertilizers like Rhizobium, Azotobacter, Azospilum have been found to improve the carbon content and nutrient availability in the soil, which encourages the plant growth. Once the plant growth is improved, it adds more organic matter through root and root exudate. Therefore, conservation of organic matter happens. Reduce the use of pesticides and toxic chemicals into the soil to enhance the microbial activity, because they directly affect the microbial activity in the soil. They affect the plant root, they affect the plant growth, and keep soil pH at around neutral and balanced soil. So, I hope that you were able to understand the topic in depth, particularly the meaning of organic matter, what are the factors that affect the content of organic matter soils. We have also seen the photosynthesis, respiration and decomposition are three important parts of carbon cycle. We have also seen decomposition under aerobic setting as well as under anaerobic setting, and then we have seen what are the factors, what are the reasons responsible for decomposition under anaerobic conditions, and we have also seen the what happens when CN ratio of organic material, how it influences the decomposition, and finally we have also seen what are the practices that encourage the organic matter levels in the soils. Particularly, we can follow the reduced tillage, conservation agriculture practices, addition of organic manure in the soil, or preventing the erosion. Adoption of agroforestry practices in certain hilly areas, we can go for conservation of soil, conservation of water. That will definitely lead to the improved levels of organic matter in the soil. Thank you.